I picked these nightstands up a few months ago, but I've been putting off flipping them because they need a lot of work. They are totally outdated, dirty, dusty, and banged up. But I'm out of furniture to flip, so here we go. I'm going to start by removing the base on this one. The base is already broken off of the other nightstand, so that was easy work. Like I do with every piece, I'm just getting them ready for paint, which first starts with cleaning. So I'm spraying them down with a degreaser and scrubbing them with my scrub brush, and then using some warm water to rinse all of that soap off. While I'm cleaning them, I'm taking a nice look at every inch of the piece to see where I need to do any repairs. For the most part, these are okay and structurally sound. However, there is some water damage on the top, and I really don't like the handle holes, so I'm going to be filling those in with Bondo. I'll start that process by screwing a couple of small screws into that handle hole to give the Bondo something to secure to. And here I'm just using this 2-part Bondo. The base is a light gray color and the cream hardener is blue. And you just mix the two together until you get a light blue shade of Bondo to fill in the handle hole. You want to make sure that you mix in enough of the cream hardener so that it hardens up nice and good, but not too much that it dries really quickly. So this shade that I'm working with here is just the perfect mix for me. I'm actually going to let this dry overnight and come back to it tomorrow. So here I am the next day sanding that Bondo down with a 180 grit sanding screen, and I'm also sanding down the fronts of the drawers. I have an idea for this little square in the front of the drawer, and I'm going to use my sander to just scuff sand the rest of it. Here to get into the grooves of this drawer front, I'm just folding a piece of sandpaper in half and running it through those grooves until it gets nice and scuffed up and the finish is removed from that raw wood piece. There's a couple of small parts on this with holes and scratches, and I'm going to be staining the front of this drawer. So I'm using a stainable wood filler to get into those holes there so that when I stain it later, the stain will make it blend in with the rest of the drawer front. Here, moving on to the second drawer, and I'm just doing that same process of sanding everything down. The very front rectangle section of those drawers I'm bringing back to raw wood, and the rest of the drawer I'm scuff sanding as I am smoothing out that Bondo repair. For the body of these nightstands, I'm just using some 220 sandpaper to scuff sand the entire piece because I'm going to be painting this. Scuff sanding it really gives your paint something to adhere to and grip onto. As I started working on this top, this one is pretty warped and water damaged, so I'm gonna have to do something different here to fill in some of the grooves that were left over from whatever standing water was on them. I'm just going to use a watered down spackling. This lets me smooth it out and basically paint it on to the top, and it really fills all of those little grooves in nicely. Once I get this all painted on, I will let it dry. In this case, I let it dry overnight and then come back and sand it smooth the next day. While that is setting, I'm going to add these support braces to the bottom, and this will give my new legs that I plan on adding to this something to secure to. So here I'm just clamping them in place using some wood glue, and then lastly my brad nailer to nail those in nice and sturdy. Okay, once everything is sanded down and the dust is wiped off, I'm just going to use some primer. This is my favorite primer. It blocks stains and bleed through from the wood, as well as grips really well and gives the paint something to grip onto that's going to have a nice, durable, long-lasting finish. So this is an oil-based primer. It will ruin your brushes and your rollers unless you clean it off with mineral spirits or paint thinner. But I'm just going to use a cheap 85-cent chip brush to get it into the details, and then a roller on my mini roller to roll it on, and I'll just end up throwing these tools away. I let that primer dry overnight, and now I'm just using 220 grit sandpaper just to knock back any of those brush marks, as well as scuff up the surface, and then I'll use a tack cloth to remove all the dust. Before I paint, I'm gonna add the hardware holes to these drawer fronts. That way my paint doesn't get cracked or ruined by drilling. So here I'm just using my brand new hardware jig to mark out where my handles will need to be. So in this case, I just line it up and then get my drill and just go straight into those new handle holes. And I'll do this same step for all 4 drawers. All right, time for paint. So here I'm just setting up my spray tent in my garage. This is definitely easier with 2 people, but I can show you here that it can also be a 1-person job. It did take me about 15 minutes, and I did it wrong the first time, but I did eventually get it set up so that I could get the nightstands brought in and I could paint these today. Here I'm just going to set these on top of some old paint cans just to keep them elevated off the ground. And I am going to paint these with the drawers in. I do prefer painting that way. I'm going to be using Audience Choice here, a dark forest green color. So this is one of my new favorite colors. I've been using a lot by Wise Owl Paint. It is a 1-hour enamel paint. It dries to a really durable finish, but it does recommend using a primer, which is why I primed with that oil-based primer in the beginning. So I'm going to strain it into my paint gun, and I water it down just a little bit. It makes it flow a little smoother through my Wagner spray gun, and then I'm going to get it set up. Here I'm just putting the setting on my usual spray setting, which is all the way tightened and then 15 clicks loosened, and testing it out before I jump in and spray it onto these nightstands. So I always end up overlapping each of my passes by 50%, and this really ensures that I get a nice coverage, as well as prevents having those tiger stripes show up on your furniture. This paint will dry within a couple of hours, and then I'll use some 220 sandpaper to just scuff sand it again and add my second coat. Here I am just going to pull those drawers out slightly and tape off the inside of the drawer, and then I will be able to paint the edges of the drawers. Okay, once that paint is dry, I'm gonna remove the tape from that center rectangle and use a light beige colored wood stain on the fronts, and that's just what I'm doing here. It's a water-based stain, so I'm just wiping it on and then using a paper towel to wipe back the excess, and I'll repeat this process on all 4 drawers. While I let that dry, I'm going to flip the nightstands on their back and add these new legs that I bought. Now, here's where I have start having some doubts about this flip. I go through this doubting phase on every flip that I do, where I'm not sure about the color, I don't like the finish, I think everything's clashing, and that's really how I was feeling about this set of nightstands as I was attaching the legs. Even as I was attaching the door handles, or the knobs, on the drawers, I was regretting everything about these nightstands and wanted to just put them in a corner and forget that they ever existed. However, they turned out much better than I was anticipating. So here I am staging these nightstands, the most important part, getting them ready for the world to see. Let me know what you think of these. These were definitely a quick flip. Lots of indecisiveness happening. I appreciate my followers by recommending the green color, but I think these just turned out rustic and masculine, and I think they could be a great addition to anyone's space.